What is up, everybody? Welcome to week 1 of the MMC Pokemon Draft League, where I'm going to be reacting to every single one of the week 1 battles. Here for week 1, we have Forza versus Drees. So here are their teams. Honestly, very good matchup, I would say, for electric terrain, but Drees does not bring E-terrain. Instead, he is allowing Forza to be able to get up his psychic terrain, which is a very interesting play. However, I do also see it. He doesn't want to get into the terrain war, so I can see the vision there. He does in fact bring the Claydol. I can imagine that thing trying to be a Sneasel answer, but at the same time, if it's a choice scarf or choice band set, it's not really going to enjoy eating those U-turns very much. Overall, I am pretty interested to see how this all goes down. I think Hawlucha has a really good matchup, so let's just see how this all goes. Alright, so Forza leads off with Steelix. Here, 1 second. I'm just going to go down a little bit slower, just so that I can give my full thoughts. So, Forza decides to Mega Evolve immediately as Drees goes for a Fiery Dance, and Iron Moth goes down immediately. Wow, okay, so that was a pretty big loss, especially to start off, because if this thing had Energy Ball, yeah, this thing kind of just wrecks the entire team, so losing that is definitely very tough. However, now Zydog comes out to Tera Ground and goes for 1,000 arrows for the kill. So that is a 1-for-1 trade for Forza's Mega Steelix, and now he has baited out the Tera on this thing, which is now super effective. So, let's just see what this goes on for. Rapid Spin, okay. Interesting play. I do think that was solid, just because nothing on the team is a good ghost type switch in. So as you see, he's going for Poltergeist. Fairly solid overall. Even if he wanted to go for a Power Whip or something along those lines, nothing really like switching in on that. Even Hawlucha doesn't enjoy eating that hit. So I do think maybe going for a Power Whip or a Seed Bomb may have been a little bit better. However, he can't really go wrong with this. So he's going for Poltergeist, and that is a big hit there, as he decides to just teleport out into Hawlucha. So, interesting name there. But now he is going into Celesteela, as he goes for a Sword Stance. Probably hoping that he would switch to Indeedee. However, I imagine Forza is probably predicting that this thing is going to be Psychic Seed, so it makes sense that he wants to bring in this thing to beat it defensively, as he decides to switch out into Lantern and just eats a soft Air Slash. Doesn't really do too much there. And now it goes for Leech Seed, trying to stall out this thing a little bit as he goes for a Flip Turn. Not sure what he can go into here. Yes, he does go into Zydog, because this will hit it for super effective damage, and nothing really likes tanking that 1,000 arrows, especially considering that Rotom Wash, because it's Levitate, it's still going to be knocked down and hit for super effective damage. So his best switch in here is likely going to be Ramblegast. So we shall see how this goes. No, he just lets this thing tank it as it goes for 1,000 arrows, and that Energy Ball does a lot of damage to this Zydog. And that is likely not a 2-shot now after that Leftovers chip, as he switches out and Energy Ball hits Lantern not very hard. I imagine that thing is either Assault Vest or very specially defensive, as Forza calls out in the chat here. AV Lantern, very interesting there. However, I do think it is a solid enough play, as he goes for Discharge, and that thing taking that damage is definitely going to be really rough, because that's his main switch into Hawlucha at this moment. And Energy Ball slowly chipping down this Lantern as he goes for Flip Turn, and we shall see what he brings it in next. Iron Bundle, okay. Iron Bundle does not really have any good switch-ins now, because Celesteela, this is likely going to go down to an Ice Beam here, and nothing really here enjoys eating an Ice Beam other than potential Rotom Wash. But even if he goes for Freeze Dry here, that is not going to be good. So let's see how this all goes. Goes for Ice Beam, takes out the Celesteela. And who does he bring in next? He brings in the Rotom Wash, as he's scouting for potential Scarf or Specs, and it's likely that it is one of those two. Shadow Ball gets the defense drop, so even if that is a roll that is unlikely to kill, and goes for a Shadow Ball again to sack Claydol. I do think Forza is in a pretty good position here now, but he does just bring out the Zydog now. So we shall see. He goes for Bramblegast. I think that is definitely a really good switch in here, as it does 72%. That is definitely a fat chunk, but that Shadow Sneak is able to claim that kill. And that is his main offensive piece right now, and that is definitely really rough for Drees. Going for a Shadow Sneak on the bundle does not do much, but that Freeze Dry is definitely going to knock it down. So we are going to see exactly what this bundle wants to do as he goes into Indeedee, and he is likely going to either stay in or he is going to swap out. That Expanding Force is 1000% killing there. Now I do think that this thing should be able to kill. He does not have the Psychic Seed, but after that Endure, he is likely going to be a weakness policy if I absolutely had to guess. So we shall see how this all goes. Yep, and oh, red card, interesting. So now that Unburden is procced, but so has the Sneaslers. So yeah, I do believe that is the end here for Drees and Forza's battle, as Sneasler picks up the kill. As we all know, Sneasler's the GOAT. Drees is not a believer in Sneasler, but hopefully maybe he is now. And of course, that is the battle for this team, and it is a 3-0 win for Forza. So keep that in the records, folks, and we will see you guys in the next battle in just a second. Alright everybody, welcome to the second battle of week 1, and here we have Vinny versus Justin. Vinny did not end up bringing his Gliscor, which is a very interesting play to say the very least. However, he does bring a decent amount of offense, I will say. A lot of offense for the stall team. However, then we have Justin over here who has his Mega Zam, he has his Tera Alcremie, he has his Urshifu Rapid Strike, Ogerpon Cornerstone, his Vaporeon, and his Pecharunt. I do think that Pecharunt unironically has a very good matchup here. His only real switch into Pecharunt's ghost type moves is Weavile, and the strongest thing that that thing can hit it with is a knockoff. So at the same time, I do think this has a very real chance of potentially sweeping his team, especially considering that Skeletors does not like walling it if it gets poisoned. So let's just see how this all starts off. So of course, first off here, we have an Aggron lead, a Mega Aggron against his Cornerstone. Honestly, I think this is a pretty solid lead off for Vinny as he gets taunted, so no rocks go up. And that is definitely a really good shout, as now he is going to spike stack him as he gets body pressed. Crit did not in fact matter, but now he gets a free spike up as well as a U-turn, potentially saving that for a sack later down the line as Vaporeon comes in. Maybe I would have personally got off another Stealth Rock, or not Stealth Rock, Spike, but I do think that this is a very valid option as he goes for Wish, and then Vinny gets up his Stealth Rock. He has no removal right now, and that Ogerpon Cornerstone is not coming back in without dying to those rocks now. So we shall see how this all ends up going here. Here we have the Pecharunt, who is a balloon, so that means that no Earthquakes are going to be able to do any damage to him at all. So now we have him just nasty plotting up, as well as Vinny trying to phase it out with Roar. Very good shot there as Urshifu comes in, as he goes for a close combat, does not do much damage whatsoever, as Aggron, I imagine, rips off a body press which kills the Urshifu Rapid Strike. Mega Aggron, people think it's a big ass wall, and you're right, it is, but it also does some major damage. And now the Mega Zam comes out, and Skeletor switches in, as now Mega Zam has the Unaware, and goes for Focus Blast, which is immune by the Skeletors. And now, what is he going to do? He brings in Vaporeon, as he's likely going to go for a Shadow Ball or a Torque Song. Shadow Ball does not do much damage. Vaporeon is bulky as hell. And now he switches in Clefable. As you can see, it is not Magic Guard, nor is it Heavy Duty Boots. So now this Toxic Chip is definitely going to wear down this Clefable, that is for sure, as he goes for a flip turn into Pecharunt. I do think Pecharunt still has a fairly good matchup here, as he goes for Wish himself, likely going to try to bring in that Mega Aggron. However, now he can get a free Nasty Plot off, and I do think that Shadow Ball should do a fair chunk to this Mega Aggron, even if it is max especially defensive. But he is likely, going for Hex. It's going to do less damage than Shadow Ball would, but if this thing does get burned, then that will be pretty bad. But then the rocks take out that Ogerpon after switching in on the Roar. This thing is being an absolute demon here, as now he is going for a substitute, as this Aggron is likely just going to try to damage it. Yes, indeed, that is what happens. And now Focus Miss forces this Aggron. He goes for Roar, and it lands on Vaporeon. So we shall see. Justin is definitely on the back foot here, as Vinny goes into his Storm Drain Tatsugiri, if I absolutely had to guess, trying to hopefully get a boost, but he goes for Wish instead. Draco Meteor is not enough to kill the Vaporeon, as he just goes for a Toxic. I think that was a fairly good play, especially now that he is at -2 and doesn't really do much to him, so he's kind of forced to spin away the hazard, and that's kind of about it, as he goes for another Wish. So we shall see what happens in this next turn here, as I do think, Tatsu needs to kind of switch here, as Vaporeon goes for a Scald, risking that boost. I think that was a pretty good predict, but it also could have been pretty sketchy if he decided to stay in. And Clef comes back in on the Scald, takes about 31%, a solid bit of damage, as that Toxic Chip is slowly wearing him down, as Scald is now hopefully going to bring him into range of a second one. We shall see how much this does, and it does not, and that Wish is going to bring him back up to 50%, but he doesn't have Protect, so Clefable goes down. And now Iron Leaves comes in to potentially threaten an Oko on this, as now he goes into Pecharunt. Does he predict with the Psyblade? Which he in fact does, knocking it down, and now he doesn't really have a great switch into Psyblade as he lets Pecharunt go down. That is really rough for Justin for sure, but now Mega Zam can come in and potentially threaten with a Shadow Ball. As he now copies the filter, and Shadow Ball does 29%. If he can hit this Focus Blast, that indeed goes down. This Mega Zam is definitely pretty scary for Vinny here as he goes into Iron Leaves. This is likely Scarf, which it is, and it manages to kill the Mega Zam. A fraud, I must say. And now Alcremie comes out. This thing is a Tera Captain, so we shall see how this all goes. He does not opt to Tera, as he is likely Tera Ground, if I had to guess by that no Tera, as Tera Steel I think would have been really good defensively here, as now the Iron Leaves is able to potentially pick up this last KO on Vaporeon, but I don't think Vaporeon is able to live 2, and that is 100% true. He can potentially go for a Scald Burn, and he does not end up getting it, so Vinny will beat Justin with a 4-0 victory in Week 1. GG's to both individuals here. Vinny and his Mega Aggron definitely showing up to play this week, and we will see you guys in the third battle. And we are back with another round of Week 1 of the MMC Pokemon Draft League, where we have Mana Burn versus Cran. Mana Burn being the owner of the MMC, and Cran being another fellow mod of the MMC. So let's see how it all goes. Their teams are on screen right now. Honestly, very, very scary teams here. I am surprised that Mana Burn has brought the X-Splat out, to be honest. But generally speaking, I think this will be a very, very scary match. Cran does not look like he has his Tera Captain, as Slurpuff is Tera banned, as you can see. But other than that, I'm not really sure exactly how this is all gonna go. I expect X-Cloud to potentially go for Tera Normal Boom Burst with the Choice Scarf, but we shall see. So, starting off with the leads, we have Diancie, and then we have Moltres. This is a pretty spooky round 1, I will say, mainly just because Moltres can't do anything to Diancie, and this is a Tera Diancie, so it could very well Tera out of its quad weakness to Steel, if he's running like a Steel Wing set at least, and that could be pretty spooky for him. But as you see here, he switches into Rillaboom, as Diancie decides to just go for a Power Gem, so no Diamond Storm. Very interesting there. Likely Iron Defense if he is a defense boosting move, but now he goes for Rotom as he goes for a knockoff. honestly pretty good, knocking off those boosts for sure. But he doesn't seem like he has any rockers on his team, so that is fairly solid. Goes for a Volt Switch. As now he goes for Mega PINSIR. Let's see exactly what Mega PINSIR wants to do here, as he Mega Evolves and then goes for a Swords Dance. Okay, so this is very, very strong then. Rock Slide to Oklo the Moltres. That is one scary PINSIR, to say the least. Especially considering that nothing on this team really wants to tank a flying type move. Ooh, Spectre barely misses out on the KO, and it dies to a Aerialate return. Mega PINSIR coming out with a vengeance. And then we have Rillaboom. Going to try to potentially outspeed, and it does not. Quick Attack is not going to allow it to outspeed anything. I was thinking with Grassy Glide, but definitely not. And now let's see, oh, living on 1 HP from the Sucker Punch as this goes down as well. And it seems like Mana Burn is in position to straight up win this week because of Mega PINSIR. And that is exactly what will happen. Mega PINSIR at 1 HP gets a 6-0 sweep on Cran. Absolute mental. This mon is insane. Okay, that was a quick round 3 of the MMC Pokemon Draft League. I hope you all enjoyed this battle, because I sure as hell did. Mega PINSIR is the GOAT, and let's get back into a round 4. Alright, let's go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the 4th match of Week 1, where we have Legion versus Patty. Honestly, a very interesting matchup here for sure. Legion, I definitely think, has a solid matchup here, but at the same time, I do think Drees also has a very good matchup with Zygarde, as Legion's best mons are often weak to ground. As you can see that Raging Bolt, Iron Treads, and Iron Boulder are all weak to ground, and not to mention Galar Darm doesn't exactly love eating ground type attacks, and Zygarde specifically with 1000 Arrows, it kind of beats Vikavolt, especially since that's his Tera Captain, and he's likely bringing it with Tera Steel, if I had to guess. However, there's a very real shot that he runs either Tera Electric or even Tera Ghost, just to not have that weakness to ground. But we shall see how this goes. I feel like Legion has a good matchup otherwise. However, specifically into Zygarde, I think he could struggle. So let's see how this all goes. Starting off with turn 1. So of course, Legion leads Vikavolt, likely trying to get up webs, as Patty leads with Overquill. And it's not Intimidate, and he goes for a Taunt. And no sticky webs go up, so that is definitely rough for Legion. And he can't go for Bug Buzz, but he just Volt Switches out. And Iron Treads comes on in, so that's likely trying to threaten a ground type attack. And Avalugg comes in and takes, honestly, a chunk from Volt Switch, I must admit, as Vikavolt comes back in, hopefully trying to get up those webs or just trying to kill. So let's see. Okay, Zygarde comes in now, as he goes for a Volt Switch, which gets blocked by the Zygarde. Okay, so now this is a pretty rough answer for Legion here, as 1000 Arrows does a chunk, definitely a lot less than expected, as Legion goes for a Toxic. So that is pretty good, being able to potentially whittle down this Zygarde, especially since this is probably Patty's biggest threat into Legion here. And now Patty is going for D-Dances, as Legion gets up a Roost to heal himself up again, and just trying to set up some boosts. And Legion, not caring at all, is getting up some webs, hopefully trying to wear down the Zygarde a little bit, as he goes for a Roost. Honestly, probably his best play, trying to Toxic Stall this Zygarde down, because Zygarde is definitely one of the mons that he does not handle very well at all. And yep, Legion is just trying to Roost stall as Patty gets up another Dragon Dance. I believe Patty should be able to go down after this one, and Vikavolt gets brought down to fairly low HP, but then roosts it all back up. And that is Patty's biggest threat. Okay, he lives on 2 yet, but likely, yes, okay, so that is probably a high roll. However, Roost does get him back up a lot as the Zygarde finally goes down. That is Patty's biggest threat, and that is definitely a big loss for sure. And you see that he is not a booster energy Valiant, so that is fairly solid. Didn't mean that he needed those webs up. However, the speed drop on Valiant is very nice. And now he switches out Valiant into Ogerpon after Valiant did a solid chunk to Jellicent, and now that Strength Sap got Jellicent back up to full. Alright, so let's see how this all goes down. You know that this is likely either Swift Swim or this is Poison Point. So let's see what this Overquill wants to do. So he switches out Jellicent, fearing a Dark type move, as Treads comes in, probably trying to threaten either an Earthquake or Volt Switch on something, as he does in fact go for Volt Switch. And now he is likely, okay, he's bringing in Darm Galar now. And then Overquill replaces Ogerpon, as now this is taking a U-turn and does an insane amount of damage. Darm Galar is a crazy behemoth for sure. And now he's just trying to hopefully go for a poison, and he gets it. So then Vikavolt Volt switches out of there, taking out Patty's Overquill, not getting up any hazards or anything either, just threatening some damage. And now Avalugg comes on in. Tera Ghost trying to get away from a Flare Blitz as he just goes for U-turn. And now Jellicent coming in to hopefully break that Rapid Spin, but he gets Toxiced instead. That could be really rough for the Jellicent, though he does have some really good ways of healing himself up, like with Strength Sap. So let's see. As he goes for a Will-O-Wisp, trying to burn that Valiant. If this is a mixed Valiant, then those physical attacks are not doing any damage whatsoever. Moonblast doing a big chunk to this Jellicent. I don't know exactly what this thing's investment is, but if this is especially defensive, that is a shot that Valiant could be specs. But that Strength Sap gets it back up to full basically, and that's a 33% to Treads. I'm starting to think that this might possibly be specs Val, as he stays in and goes for a Volt Switch. So then what is this going to be tanking? And that is another Moonblast from Valiant, who takes out Vikavolt, trying to capitalize on Legion, just trying to Volt Switch and U-turn around. As Darm Galar comes in, and it likely will be outspeeding just about everything on the team at this point. So let's see, as U-turn just chunks down that Jirachi, that does a crazy amount of damage. That might even be Banded Darm Galar, depending on what this Rachi's defense EVs are looking like. As Raging Bolt is going for the win with the Calm Minds, as Rachi's going for Ice Punch. That could very well freeze. That is a 20% freeze chance, but Raging Bolt doesn't give it the chance, as it just takes the kill with Thunderbolt. And now Iron Valiant gets its speed dropped. Does this still outspeed? It does not, because of Thunderclap priority. So I do believe that Legion might just have this in the bag, beating Patty with a 5-0. No, this still survives, so this has play rough, and it does not kill. That is rough right there for sure. However, he does not. He goes for the substitute, and he doesn't have enough HP. He's just trying to stall out Thunderclap PP, and he might go for it now. And nope, he just clicks Thunderclap again. So I believe that means that Legion beats Patty with a 5-0. That is a big loss for Patty, especially considering his last Showdown League here at the MMC, he was the victor. So this is a big loss for week 1. However, we all know Patty, and he can very well come back in later weeks. GG's to Legion, and I will see you guys in the 5th match. Alright everybody, welcome to the 5th match, where we have KennyBot versus J-Mines. Honestly, both teams, they pretty much brought their top 6, except for Kenny, who did not end up bringing Golden Go and instead brought Tera Arbalova. We don't know exactly what Tera type this is for Arbalova, though I do see potential Tera Poison being fairly decent here, especially into Infernape being able to eat physical fighting type moves pretty well as eating Gengar Sludge Waves and Sludge Bombs pretty well as well. However, I think this is a pretty interesting matchup, both teams essentially bringing their top mons, so let's see how it all goes. So first off here, for the leads, we have Zapdos from Kenny, as well as Mega Scizor for Jay. Do they switch out immediately, or do they just Mega? As Kennybot goes for a Thunderbolt, so that means that he is unlikely running Heat Wave for this thing, unless he just wanted to make sure that this thing wasn't able to switch out, basically. As he switches in Incineroar on a Bullet Punch. And now going into Hatron as it goes for the Magic Bounce. Okay, does he still get to switch, or... Oh, Jay instead gets to switch. That is crazy tech there. As Araquanid comes out, he does not Tera, so preserving that, as they just go for a Liquidation, and it gets the static proc. Zapdos is crazy with the static there. And switching in Mega Scizor here, honestly, that is a pretty big risk, though, as you see, him going for Roost is pretty solid. Though, if you just went for Thunderbolt, then that would have been really bad, as that would have put Mega Scizor in range then of a second one. But from now, it looks like that Mega Scizor will be able to get off another Roost here, because it is likely running Roost, if I had to guess. As Kennybot brings in Incineroar. So let's see, as he just goes for a knockoff instead of the Roost. Okay, so let's see what they want to do here. So bringing the Hat, trying to block a status move as it gets knocked off. So no more leftovers as he goes for Parting Shot. So trying to force him to just switch out could be pretty solid, though giving him the momentum like that I don't think is the best option, as they go into Starmie, as Infernape goes for the Nasty Plot. So let's see exactly what this is, and they just go into Scizor now. Eats a very limp Psyshock, as this is Life Orb Starmie. So now Zapdos comes in, letting Mega Scizor get off a Swords Dance for free, but this... I do believe this is in range of a Thunderbolt now. It could be. I'm not sure if this was a low roll or if this was a high roll, but this is definitely possibly a roll. So let's see what he goes for here, as he goes for a Bullet Punch on the Zapdos. Does not do much damage, as Hurricane guarantees a KO. Alright, so Kenny claims the first blood on the Mega Scizor. And now, at this current point in time, not much really wants to come in on Zapdos here, especially if his last move is U-turn or Volt Switch, as not even Terapagos really wants to come in here, since that gives him just free momentum then. So let's see, as Araquanid comes in, going for a Tera Electric. Okay, so this means that he's not going to be getting the Liquidation boost. However, he does not exactly need it, as he is still doing a crazy amount of damage, and he was able to resist both of Zapdos' attacks. But now Kennybot switches into Arbalava as they go for another Liquidation, which does an insane amount of damage, by the way, especially considering that was a resisted hit. But now switching into Araquanid, as Arbalava goes for a Protect, which fails as a result, but Arbalava just getting a little bit more healing off with a Giga Drain there, doing a pretty big chunk to Hatron, to be honest. I would say that is likely uninvested, because Hatron is fairly specially bulky, if I remember correctly. So now they're just going for a Calm Mind, but now they are in range of another Calm Mind, Giga Drain, I meant to say. As they switch into Terapagos. So if this is leftovers, or if... Alright, so we see a leftovers letting this thing get more healing off? And no, it does not. So this is likely going to stay broken now, which is really good. As they go for an Aura Sphere. Awesome. Okay, so that is really good for Jay, as now... this is not going to be at full HP just yet, so this will allow Kenny to bring in Great Tusk, potentially to get a KO on something here. So let's see what he goes for. He brings in Great Tusk, and he gets the booster attack. As he goes for a Rapid Spin, do they have Psychic coverage? No, they do not, but the Tera Starstorm does an insane amount of damage. but now he is at +1 speed, able to outspeed the rest of the team. So now it's just a matter of, can Great Tusk get the KOs on all these things with Headlong Rush. Close Combat claims the kill on Terapagos, and does Infernape come out with Vacuum Wave? That is also another thing that could threaten this KO, as they do have the Vacuum Wave. Alright, so what does Kenny want to bring out here? They bring in Starmie. Starmie definitely is able to threaten out the Infernape there, and it still claims the kill on Hatteran with the Psyshock. And now Gengar comes in. Gengar will likely be able to outspeed and potentially Oko this. Actually, no. It looks like Starmie is likely to have more speed investment if he is speed creeping Gengar. So we shall see if this is a Scarf Gengar able to come in and Oko this, or if Kenny will want to switch into potentially Arboliva to eat this Shadow Ball. So let's see. As he goes for an Energy Ball, which honestly would have been able to catch Diancie on the switch, so I do respect it. However, now that Arboliva is in, it's better than taking no damage at all with Shadow Ball, but now we get to see if this is potentially a Choice Scarf. As they go for Protect, as do we see, yes, we do see the switch in moves, so we know for a fact that this is not choiced. As they go for a Tera Fire on the Arboliva, which honestly Arboliva is able to tank that pretty well, as that Tera Blast does a lot of damage there. This is a pretty close match so far, as Destiny Bond goes off and Kenny predicts it going for a Strength Sap. However, with Gengar being faster, okay, it goes away this turn, and Tera Blast is just going to miss out on that kill. Really unfortunate there, as now Kenny is going for a Protect, as Gengar just goes for a Sludge Bomb, as now they are trying to play the game of predicting Destiny Bond. So does Kenny predict it again? He does in fact predict it again. So now we're at the point where Kenny is just able to get off some free damage on something, either on claiming the kill on Gengar. Okay, so Kenny is in a really good position now, but this Araquanid is really scary still. But now Infernape comes out, hoping to potentially get some damage off on this for Araquanid, but now goes for Nasty Plot. So let's see. That Psyshock was able to KO, so that is really good for Kenny here. It all depends on if Araquanid can claim these kills or not. Psyshock does a good bit of damage. Do they have Leech Seed? If they do have Leech Seed, they didn't, not Leech Seed, Leech Life, they did not go for it. So this could be a boosting move, boosting item instead of a, I'm not sure. This could be a choice band is what I'm trying to say. So let's see. That barely missed out, but Arboliva is able to outspeed and claim the kill on Araquanid, claiming a 2-0 dub over J-Mines. Very well played to both individuals for sure. Very good match overall, and I will see all of y'all in the 6th match shortly here. Alright everybody, welcome to the 6th round here, where we have Victory Stars versus Old Man. Both teams, again, kind of brought their top 6. Wolf 100% brought his top 6 here. Garchomp, Darkrai, Screamtail, Mega Blastoise, Tangrowth, and Zeraora. Definitely a very fast team to say the very least, but also some crazy bulk with Screamtail, Mega Blastoise, and Tangrowth being able to eat hits while also dishing out some damage. And you can't deny that Garchomp has a lot of defensive utility as well. And then Stars' team basically brought all of his top 6 except for Skarmory, in which case he swapped it out for Nidoqueen. No Hisuian Zoroark is definitely very interesting for sure. I wouldn't say interesting in a bad way. I'm just saying that it's going to help Wolf a lot with being able to make these predicts, making sure that he's not going to get fooled by illusion or anything. But this Nidoqueen could definitely put in some work. So let's see how this all goes here. Starting off with the very first round. Turn up the volume a little bit. There we go. So first off, we have Victory Stars leading off with Victini versus Old Man's Blastoise. I do suspect that this is either going to go for a Bolt Strike on this Blastoise, or he's going to go for a U-turn. It all depends on what item this is. This could be Scarf, this could be Band, you never really know. So let's see as he switches into Garchomp, trying to aim for that Bolt Strike, but no, he gets Toxic instead. Gotta love NetDex, folks. Gotta love Toxic. Gotta love Toxic Stall on Mons that really shouldn't be able to Toxic Stall. Absolutely my genuine least favorite part of NetDex. But regardless, here we have Balloon Primarina to be able to be immune to both of Garchomp's attacks. So this is definitely a really good start off for Victory Stars, to say the least. As this Garchomp is slowly getting whittled down as he switches into Scream Tail. Getting the flip turn off and probably going into Nidoqueen. Okay, I thought he was going into Mawile there. Now going for a trick on this thing to get rid of its life orb as he gets a ring target. I can't remember exactly what ring target does, but I do know that it is fairly solid as a trick item. Not really the best thing to have. Going for Side Noise, just letting this thing go down. Okay, definitely very interesting for sure. But that Life Orb did get off some good chip damage, as he was also able to get up his rocks. So now Mega Blastoise comes on in, gonna Mega Evolve and probably try to just kill this. And that's in fact what he does, going for Scald instead of Water Pulse for the boosted damage. But regardless, I think this is very solid move for him as he goes into Meowth, as he switches into Tangrowth and gets U-turned as a result. Pretty standard set, I would say. Meowscarada going for U-turn. What do you know? As we see that this Victini is in fact Boots, as he switches into Blastoise now, as he goes for a Psychic. And then again, just probably gonna try to go for that Toxic Stall, but he goes for Flip Turn instead of going for Scald. So definitely good to keep some of the health back as he now goes for Protect. Let's see, and Darkrai goes for a Nasty Plot. So that is definitely very scary for sure, especially since this will be able to guarantee KO this. And now he's likely going to be Tera Fairy Ryun. Yep, exactly. As he goes for Sludge Bomb, getting that kill, getting that read. Old Man is definitely in an incredible position right now. Mawile is now in a potential position to kill here, depending on what this Darkrai set is, as he goes for Incinerate. It does not kill, so this Mawile will be able to pick up the kill on Darkrai, but Stars is now on a pretty big back foot, going into this Zeraora now. So this is likely going to be a Sucker Punch. Yes, indeed. As now Zeraora is probably just gonna, claim that KO. And depending on what this Meowscarada's move is, item is, which is likely Scarf if I absolutely had to guess. So we shall see what he goes for as he goes into Garchomp here now. Oh, Sucker Punch. So this is likely not Choice Scarf then, unless he's Choice Scarf Sucker Punch, which is a little interesting, I would say. But as you see that he is not Choice Locked, going for Flower Trick, switching between the moves, and now, okay. This is probably Boots, actually. I didn't quite see if this took damage, but he gets the poison off with the Sludge Bomb, being able to claim this kill. And I believe that just seals the fate of this Primarina. I don't believe that this Prima will be able to take on all four of these. Oh, with that crit, that definitely could have mattered, especially since, yes, we see that this is a special attacking Tangrowth. So that crit might have mattered somewhat at least. But now let's see if this Garchomp will be able to potentially claim this kill with Earthquake now. And it in fact does. It is not physically bulky Primarina. That crit definitely was pretty spooky there. However, I will say the way that Old Man played that Darkrai was huge, I will say. Darkrai, honestly, been fighting those mid allegations 100%. Granted, it was at +2 and had a super effective move, which did not, in fact, kill Mawile, so kind of fraudulent still. But he is putting in work, I cannot lie. And I can't wait to see what Old Man and Stars do in the future, and I'll see the rest of y'all in the 7th match coming up right here. Alright everybody, welcome to the 7th match of the MMC Pokemon Draft League, where we have Renegade versus Iger, the 11-point god. So here we have Mike here with his top 6 plus Milotic, instead of Galarian Weezing. And then we have Iger, the 11-point god, with Mega Pidgeot, Metagross, Tapu Bulu, Sylveon, Swampert, and Terrakion. Looking at it, Terrakion could have a pretty solid matchup here. It kind of just all depends on how he can handle that Lopunny, I would say. Fizdef, Sylveon, as well as potentially Fizdef, Tapu Bulu, probably handle Mega Lopunny decently and can at least somewhat threaten it. However, at the same time, that Mega Lop can still threaten huge damage with its normal type attacks, augmented by its fighting stab as well. And then Tera Arcanine, you can't count that thing out. This thing could be a huge menace for this team depending on what the Tera type is. So let's get into it with the very first turn here. So let's see what the leads are. Lead Lopunny versus lead Hurt. Pretty standard, probably trying to... Okay, I was going to say trying to get the rocks up, but he decides to just switch as this Lopunny goes for a fake out. I see, as this is a Rocky Helmet Metagross, likely physically defensive, as now he goes into Arcanine. So let's see what this Metagross does. He goes for a knockoff, reading the switch, probably hoping that Dragapult were to switch in. But let's see what this Arcanine wants to do, and it goes for Will-O-Wisp on the Swampert. I don't know how much that will end up mattering, because this is likely a bulky Swampert if I had to guess. So I suspect, okay, going for Flip Turn, standard there, trying to get a little bit of momentum going, as Tapu Bulu comes in. Now, Renegade doesn't really have the best switch-ins outside of Arcanine and Corviknight, of course, but depending on what this thing's coverage could be, it could potentially do some damage, and Leech Seed comes off. This is probably one of the best sets for this Corviknight, augmented by Nature's Madness. Really solid for sure. Now that Corviknight is at less than half HP, and is not going to be a great switch-in going forward. As now Arcanine comes in after getting U-turned out from the Corviknight, as he doubles back into Corviknight. So let's see what this thing wants to go for. And it goes for Swampert, which will likely let this Corviknight get a roost up for free. So he might just want to go for Rocks in this case. He instead goes for Knockoff to get rid of this thing's leftovers. Not a bad idea, as he goes for Iron Defense. Solid move for sure. Maybe I would have gone for a Roost, because now I feel like this is a pretty standard idea to go into either Sylveon or even a Mega Pidgeot, but he decides to bring in Tapu Bulu, trying to possibly get rid of that +2 defense, if I had to guess, with a Nature's Madness. But now he just goes up for Sub-Seed Nature's Madness, definitely a very annoying Bulu set for sure, as Pult comes in, likely Infiltrator, if I had to guess. So Specs Flamethrower might do a huge damage, and it is not Infiltrator, it is instead Clear Body. As Arcanine comes out after getting U-turned. So now this Bulu is going to be pretty annoying for Renegade to have to break through. Arcanine might be able to do a solid job, but this Swampert just keeps on coming in, as now he Tera normals and goes for an Extreme Speed, which is 43 to this Swampert. Not enough to 2-hit KO, especially after the Leech Seed and the Terrain Healing. So let's just see what he wants to go for. He wants to go for a Dragapult here as he gets a Flip Turn off. So let's see who he brings in. Tapu Bulu yet again to just do more of its bullshit Bulu things. So let's see if he's just going for the hard Nature's Madness, or if he's going for a Leech Seed, a substitute. He goes for a Leech Seed as Renegade burns him. I don't think that matters too much, considering the fact that he's likely not running any physical attacks, or maybe he's running like a Wood Hammer or something along those lines as a fourth move. That miss on Nature's Madness is 100% rough, but at the same time, this likely can just be able to roost back up afterwards, so not the biggest loss ever, as now he just continues to go for Leech Seed, getting more healing off on this Tapu Bulu. This is really annoying for Renegade to be able to beat, as he's just trying to pivot in and out of battle, trying to get into a good position, as now Metagross comes in, and Bulu comes back in right after. This is a lot of pivoting here for sure. I definitely would have gone for potentially a knockoff, but at the same time, that likely would have meant that Lopunny was able to come in for free. And Bulu does kind of stop this if this is physically defensive Bulu. And now Terrakion comes on out as it gets burned by the Arcanine. This seems to be a very slow battle so far, folks. But this Terrakion now switches into Pidgeot, as now Renegade goes into Corviknight. This is a Heat Wave and a half, if I absolutely had to guess, as Milotic comes in. It all depends if he wants to read this or not, and he goes for the Hurricane, but it only does 29%, so this is likely especially a defensive Milotic, if I had to guess. And here we see a Toxic on a Mon that absolutely should not be running Toxic. Gotta love Nat Dex, folks. But Sandy Shocks comes on in to threaten this Pidgeot with some strong electric type attacks. So of course Swampert wants to come in, but this does not. Oh, going for rocks, predicting the switch. Solid idea on Renegade's part for sure, as now he is just getting up some hazards, as this thing can't really threaten much damage on Sandy Shocks right now. So his main goal is to just get up as many hazards as possible and threaten the hell out of the rest of this team. So Sylveon takes a big chunk, as now Sandy Shocks goes down to a Hyper Voice. This is potentially a Specs Hyper Voice Sylveon for sure. But now this Mega Lopunny is going to threaten big damage with return, but the Rocky Helmet is slowly but surely chipping away at this Lopunny. So let's see what he wants to do here. Going for a knockoff, getting rid of this thing's heavy duty boots. I don't believe that 20... it's possible this thing might be Marvel scale. Even if it's competitive, I would have to run calcs on that. But regardless, this Bulu is still going to be insanely annoying for Renegade to break through. Sandy Shocks going down doesn't really help too much. Doesn't really hurt the Bulu matchup too much. It's just mainly trying to pivot Arcanine into a good position to be able to threaten this Bulu. And being able to potentially get this thing in a good position, as now he just kills the Bulu. That is probably Iger's strongest thing into this matchup for sure, as it was threatening a lot of chip damage on things. And now this burn Terrakion, it all depends on how the rest of this team can fare. Going for a Swords Dance to neutralize that burn and getting as much utility out of this grassy terrain as possible, trying to not get knocked down too much as he crits the Stone Edge. Now this thing is below half HP, and it can definitely be in range of a Pidgeot Heat Wave for sure. But now this Lopunny comes on out. Does he want to just sack this? And he does. Oh, this is Choppleberry, but it does not matter because Mega Lopunny is crazy. So let's see what he wants to go for. Metagross, this might even be in range of close combat, and he does not want to risk it, as Milotic is just free for sure. Trying to catch that Dragapult on the switch, and he just will not let him. Going for Flip Turn again, getting a little bit of chip damage off. Every bit of chip does in fact help. So let's see what this Corviknight can do to this Metagross after getting Heavy Slammed. It does not take much damage there, so it likely will be roosting. So let's see if this Mega Pidgeot can break this Corviknight. It all depends on how this Milotic can fare into this. Ooh, the burn on the Corviknight is definitely pretty rough for sure, especially without leftovers. Now Lopunny comes out to face off against the Mega Pidgeot, and Metagross likely going to be a sack to this Lopunny for a little bit more chip damage. This might just be the end for Iger after this Lopunny for sure. Lopunny is cracked Mon. What can I say? It's a very strong and fast Mon, but yeah, it is definitely very rough. So let's go into Milotic, and let's just see if Sylveon can at least claim one more kill. It all just kind of depends on this. Likely will not be able to win, and it claims the kill on Milotic, and now Mega Lopunny will just be able to come in and claim a few more kills for the dub. GG's to both Renegade and Iger. I'm looking forward to both of your guys' matches going forward 100%. Y'all both played very well. Maybe a little on the passive side with all the double switches, but hey, at the end of the day, you're going for the positioning, so I respect the hell out of it. So again, massive GG's to you guys, and I will see you guys in the final match. Alright everybody, welcome to the 8th and final match of week 1 of the MMC Pokemon Draft League, and here we have Caps Lock versus Ash Ice Claw. Honestly, pretty scary teams on both of these sides, especially coming from Ash. I would probably say, not that they necessarily have an amazing matchup with the Intimidate Landorus Therian being able to threaten a good portion of Ash Ice's team. However, I do love Ash Ice's team. I must say it is just so much fun. Like, at the end of the day, it is such a fun team, and like, Obstagoon is going to be there to click Guts boosted attacks, or potentially even absorb status on things like Thunder Waves on Galarian Slowking, or possibly even poisons from like Toxic Spikes. Mega Altaria gonna be able to do its Mega Altaria thing, hopefully not get flinched like a certain match that I'm aware of. However, even Caps Lock's team is going to be incredibly scary with Palafin. Hopefully it's not Water Gun Palafin. If you know, you know. And then also potential Weather Ball on Specs Kilobird. Like, this is going to be really rough for Ash Ice to switch in on. However, I am very excited, and I hope you all are as well for this final week here. So let's get right into it. Alright, so let's see what the leads are. We have lead Palafin, very standard, and here, of course, Water Gun, as the Goon comes in, as well as now Tinkaton switches in and eats a knockoff. Does tank a solid amount of damage, but it steals the Choice Scarf. However, at the end of the day, it was Choice Scarf. It would have been really funny if this was a Flame Orb, because then Tinkaton would have been burned, but at the same time, then Obstagoon's Guts never would be procced. So definitely pretty interesting. Heck, this could even be Defiant with Landorus Therian here. So let's just see. Alomomola comes on in as Tinkaton gets up the Stealth Rock. And now Slowking Galar comes on in to eat potentially a Scald, and it gets a Toxic. Very, very good switch in there. And now the Goon comes back in as it Nasty Plots. Okay, this should be able to eat a knockoff. Yes, it eats one, but is this able to KO this Obstagoon with a Sludge Bomb? And it does indeed. So now, who is Ash Ice going to revenge with? And that would be Annihilate. They're probably, yep, gonna switch, get that Regenerator healing for sure, as Harambe the Annihilate U-turns into Stakataka. This thing is a beast for sure. Just narrowly avoiding being Terra legal, because this thing is just a monster, 1000%. And that Gyro Ball does a crazy amount of damage, and that Body Press does 49%. Quad effective, by the way. And now Palafin coming on in to hopefully tank this hit, as it goes for a Gyro Ball doing 33%, a big chunk of damage, as this is leftovers. And now Alomomola coming on in on a likely close combat. No, a Jet Punch in fact. And now taking some Rocky Helmet chip damage. This is likely a bulk up Palafin, so let's just see what they can do here. And now this... Oh, that burn is going to be really rough for this Miltank, but this is likely going to try to go for a Milk Drink. Yep, indeed, that is what happened. And now Alomomola is getting off a Wish, trying to heal up that Stakataka if I absolutely had to guess, as now this goes for a Toxic, and going for Baton Pass instead of Flip Turn. Very interesting there, but this is going to get Stakataka back up to 100% HP to potentially threaten a KO on something, or at least a big chunk of damage, and the Clear Amulet prevents Intimidate from being procced, as he just hard switches out into the Annihilate to U-turn on this on this Landorus, who then again clicks Toxic on this Alomomola. So many Toxic Mons, so much fun. I hope you all are having fun. And now going for Baton Pass yet again into Annihilate. We shall see what this will be able to do. Getting up that regenerator damage, chip damage healing. And now this Kilobird is going to threaten a big chunk of damage on something switching in. Ooh, that Hurricane miss is rough for sure. And now I imagine both of these Tera Ice. No, the Leaf Storm is gonna do 69%. Nice. As now the Hurricane crits and kills this Electrode. That potentially could have mattered, but at the same time, it makes up for the miss. So at the end of the day, you can't really complain too much. But the close combat to revenge, as this is now revealed to be Choice Scarf Annihilate. The Kilobird goes on down, as this is also Defiant, getting the Mirror boost from the Intimidate on Defiant. That is some heat right there. Wow, okay. This Landorus might just be able to clear the board from here at this point. Getting the +2 boost despite it also dropping. I didn't know that it worked that way. Let's just hope that this Altaria will be able to live this Earthquake, as it does not die to a Stone Edge, but now the Ice Beam is able to take the KO. However, I think Ash Ice's team might just be in full range of this bulk up Palafin now. We'll just have to see how this all turns out. Will the Stakataka be able to live a close combat potentially? Annihilate coming on in, maybe going for a final Gambit, trying to knock itself out while taking out the opponent. No, going for an Earthquake, which takes the KO on the Tinkaton. And that's also super effective into Slowking Galar. So that was a very good read for sure. As now this Stakataka is coming on in as Palafin starts to bulk up. I think it might be over at this point, because now this thing is going to be at +2, and I don't think Stakataka is going to be able to do enough damage as a soft Earthquake lands into the Palafin. I think this is just 2 Jet Punches away from just dying at this point. It definitely feels like that for sure. So we shall see if this Palafin, yep, the Palafin claims the kill on Stakataka, and now it seems like it is over. Caps Lock wins with a 3-0 dub against Ash Ice. I hope you all enjoyed. Here are the Week 1 standings for the MMC Pokemon Draft League. I hope you all enjoyed this video. And of course, feel free to drop a like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you guys in the next week. Peace.